Support for the Leadoff on WGLT and WGLT.org comes from the Central Illinois Regional Airport, where travelers are one stop away from world destinations. Connections on Delta Airlines to Atlanta are available daily. Close, convenient, CIRA. More at CIRA.com.
Rivian never got the millions in tax breaks it was promised by the state when it first came to town. That's one of the things you need to know to start your day for Tuesday, May 21st. I'm Ryan Denham, and this is WGLT's The Leadoff. Now let's lead off with why the electric automaker Rivian never got the state tax breaks it was promised 7 years ago. WGLT's student reporter Ben Howell has more.
Back in 2017, Rivian was a little-known startup looking to revive the shuttered Mitsubishi plant in Normal. To do that, the company wanted help. Tax breaks from state and local governments. Then Governor Bruce Rauner said that the state would provide up to $49 million in EDGE tax credits if Rivian met hiring and capital investment thresholds, which it did. But Rivian never got the tax breaks. State officials confirmed to WGLT that the company never received any of that money. A Rivian spokesperson said that they chose not to pursue the tax credits. That's because they could only be used against corporate income tax liability, and Rivian didn't have any at the time. The abandoned tax breaks had not been previously reported. It comes weeks after state officials announced a new assistance package for Rivian to support more expansion and hiring. This package is much bigger, up to $827 million over 30 years. Most of it is from the Reimagining Energy and Vehicles, or REV, tax credit program. Here's Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Director, Kristen Richards.
We are transitioning Rivian to the REV program.
This would be at least the second abandoned incentive for Rivian. The company also never received the $1 million Town of Normal grant that it was owed. That was also by design. The company announced during the early days of COVID that the town would be better served by keeping the money. For the Leadoff, I'm Ben Howell.
Here's some other stories we're following at the WGLT newsroom. Planned Parenthood of Illinois is reopening its Peoria Health Center nearly a year and a half after the building sustained more than $1 million in damages in a firebombing attack. The FBI in Springfield is warning the public about a scam targeting Chinese communities in the U.S. and students attending American universities. The scammers are posing as law enforcement officials from China. Bloomington's new ECHL hockey team, the Bison, will be affiliated with an NHL team when they drop the puck this fall. That affiliation and the Bison's first coach will be announced May 30th. You can find more on these stories at WGLT.org. Some states have begun to ban cell phones in schools, but here in Illinois, educators statewide are left to make their own rules and regulations surrounding phone usage. In Bloomington Normal, those policies vary widely. WGLT's Melissa Ellin spoke to students, educators, and parents about what they'd like to see done.
In District 87, there are efforts to curb social media and phone usage for students, but even within the district, there's no uniform policy. Leslie Blockman is the Social and Emotional Learning Coordinator at District 87. She says there's no clear guidance on what people are supposed to do, and there's a lack of education surrounding the issue.
Some parents are doing it, some are not. Some schools are doing more than others, and some are like us where they want to do things but unsure what the right thing is or when and how.
At Bloomington Junior High School, Principal Messina Lambert says her staff were fed up with the phones in class.
They're such a distraction, and it's not the apps that are, educational that are causing the issues. It's the communication with peers, it's the bullying, it's things that are harmful to kids.
So, as one of the first acts in her new role, Lambert banned cell phones for students. Under new guidelines, whenever a student had a phone out without permission, it was to be confiscated. The school year wraps up this week, and Lambert says the policy made a notable difference. Misuse of phones, the code for phone-related infractions, is no longer the top disciplinary issue.
The social media issues throughout the day are not happening. They're not texting each other to arrange to meet up in bathrooms or anything like that. They know that if their phone is seen, it is going to be confiscated.
Once students reach high school, there are fewer restrictions. At both District 87 and Unit 5, teachers create their phone policies. Bloomington High School teacher Rich Watson told his students if they gave him a full 46 minutes of class time uninterrupted by phones, he would allow them to be on their phones for the last 4 minutes of class. He'd also allow late work and resubmissions.
Because I'm not going to guess why it wasn't done. I know life happens. But if you can't give me the 46 when we're here, then you haven't earned that.
Students could opt out of the agreement with the guardian's sign-off, but for the spring semester, which was his second semester with this policy in place, Watson says not a single student opted out. As a result, he says students' work has improved, as has their attention.
A big thing that's gotten better is the actual classroom discussion, because everyone in the room now is forced to be, to some level, engaged. But even those that are quiet personalities that don't want to speak out, they're hearing the back and forth. They're thinking about the back and forth. You see it in their writing.
Watson says students will cite discussions in submissions. At Unit 5, Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Crystal Shelvin, says a teacher at one of the high schools did something similar to Watson. They used a conversation around cell phones to introduce the idea of fair process.
You have engagement of everyone in the conversation so that everyone's kind of views and points of view are shared, but then ultimately there's a decision made by the person who has the authority to make that decision.
As educators are trying to figure all of this out, the students are feeling the effects. Students at Normal Community High School and Bloomington High School say they recognize the harm phones can cause. Prajna Karela, who is graduating from Normal Community, says she thinks she'd be a much different person without social media access at such a young age.
My attention span would have been way better. I would have been prioritizing sleep instead of sitting in bed. I would have also gotten my work done on time, that I have more time for other things.
Her sister, Pranika Karela, is a rising junior at Community. She says she thinks her room would probably look different without social media, and so would her personality.
Everything that you collect and add on to your personality you gather from social media, because it's either the new trending thing or it's what's cool now. So you kind of just base your whole personality off of that, and then you just lose your uniqueness.
At the same time, the Karela sisters and Bloomington High School students say social media is near essential to their schoolwork. It's how they disseminate information for clubs and how they get information from the school about sports and even snow days. Kamora Carter is graduating from Bloomington. She says getting updates this way makes sense.
Students don't check their email nearly as often as they check social media.
Elliot Tolentino says it feels hypocritical when coming from educators who are so against social media usage. He pointed out that some Bloomington High School teachers use social media to share class updates.
These same teachers will go through the entire class yelling at students to get off their phone, that social media is destroying their young lives, but then they provide social media pages for our main source of news.
Tolentino says he's not sure it's bad to operate this way, but there needs to be more education and conversation about social media if teachers are going to be using it. Rising junior Corvin Rivera agrees. He says there needs to be education around how to identify cyberbullying and fake news.
Social media isn't going to go away once you get out of high school. This is going to be something that goes into your adult life.
Kamora Carter says it's hard to know where to turn for help with managing social media.
I hate to be like that stereotypical movie teenager who says my parents don't understand, but they kind of don't understand. My parents were born in the 70s. They had flip phones when they got to high school.
Leslie Blockman with District 87 does what she can in schools to educate about phones to students through the 7 Mindsets curriculum and to guardians through parent nights, but there are additional barriers to more dedicated lessons.
If money wasn't an issue and time wasn't an issue, we would love to see in District 87 students have education around social media use as early as 3rd grade.
Blockman says that doesn't mean the schools and parents should do nothing.
It's an area of growth for everybody, but definitely a necessary one.
District 87 parent Lana Branch says she does all she can to learn about social media so she can keep her kids safe. Neither of her children have phones, including her oldest, who's 12 and desperately wants one. Branch says keeping her kids away from phones helps keep them away from social media, which she worries about having to moderate when the day comes.
That's going to be a full-time job.
Branch says parental control apps are costly and they're not easy to use.
I'm willing to put in whatever time it takes to make sure my sons are safe. But more parents have to be involved.
Branch characterized the turnout for a District 87 parent night around social media as bleak. Bloomington High School student Kimora Carter says the same can be said for student interest in the issue.
I do appreciate the amount of student groups that are emerging to try and combat different issues like this. However, I do feel like students don't take each other seriously enough to actually get involved with what they see is wrong.
Despite this, Carter says students will need to be at the helm if any change is to happen around social media because parents, teachers, and administrators just don't have the same experiences. Meanwhile, Normal Community High School student Prajna Karela says most of the current burden for phone usage in general falls on students themselves. She urges her peers to self-regulate.
You need to create your own limitations and self-discipline, because I'm not saying that social media inherently is bad. It's great for a lot of things like clubs and communication, but also personally, you need to learn how to balance your enjoyment on your digital device and prioritize yourself.
I'm Melissa Ellin.
Melissa covers mental health as a Report for America Corps member. Report for America places journalists in local newsrooms across the country to cover underreported topics.
Support for WGLT mental health coverage comes from Report for America and Chestnut Health Systems, caring for the community's physical and mental health and celebrating 50 years of service.
Before we let you go, the Town of Normal's Human Relations Commission meets today at 5:15 at City Hall. On the agenda are updates to the town's Human Relations Ordinance. And that's it for today. I'm Ryan Denham. You can subscribe to the Leadoff on the NPR app or wherever you listen.